Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
The IRS is touting its performance during this year's filing season as evidence that it can still carry out its tax duties despite losing more than a quarter of its workforce under the Trump administration. The agency's top official says technology improvements at the IRS are making it easier for taxpayers to get help online and that it's seen a year-over-year decrease in phone calls. Federal News Network's Jory Heckman is here with more details. Jory, thanks for joining me.
Hey, Terry.
All right. So Mr. Bisignano testified about the IRS on tax day. What did he say about how the IRS's performance looks during the tax filing season?
Right. So by the numbers, the IRS did overall meet its goals and objectives here. The agency received more than 134 million individual tax returns and issued more than 80 million refunds. About 98% of those returns and refunds were both submitted and received electronically, so the vast majority of those. And those who did get a refund, 90% of those taxpayers received those refunds within 21 days or less. The average tax refund was about $3,400, which is an 11% increase compared to the prior year. And Bisignano said that this was the most successful filing season in IRS history and felt pretty vindicated by the performance, even though the IRS lost about 27% of its workforce compared to this period last year.
How is the IRS dealing with those staffing cuts?
Yeah, so Bisignano said that the IRS is looking to step up in terms of technology, in terms of automation, to do more with less. Part of what he said to members of the Senate Finance Committee is that the IRS can deal with less people and still have better results. And so the IRS is going to continue to step up ways to have more taxpayers get their help online by themselves, not have to rely on calling the IRS and hoping that someone on the other end will pick up and be able to answer them. However, the workforce cuts have been really acute in the technology field here. That last December, the IRS permanently moved more than 1,000 of its employees out of its tech shop. A lot of those employees were put on temporary details this filing season to help out with answering phone calls, with processing tax returns, but none of those employees have really been told what they'll be doing for the agency in the long term. And it was only recently that the IRS's chief information officer said that the agency's tech workforce saw about a 40% decrease and an 80% loss in its leadership compared to last year.
Did all of those staffing cuts result in any unusual hiccups during this year's filing season?
There are a couple notable ones. We reported just a few weeks ago that the IRS, in the 11th hour before the tax filing season, told some of its employees that they received W-2s that were inaccurate, that they actually didn't correctly calculate the overtime wages for some employees, and that all changed under the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that passed last summer. And so if they had already filed their tax returns for the year, these IRS employees were being told to submit amended returns. That's overall, it's a drop in the bucket compared to the 134 million tax returns that were submitted. And going back to the 98% of refunds that were received electronically, there were some taxpayers, about 1.5 million taxpayers, who did not submit direct deposit information for any number of reasons. They may be unbanked. They may just prefer that paper check that they're used to receiving, but they didn't give that information to the IRS. And as a result, they were waiting about 10 weeks to receive that paper check.
What was the reaction from the committee members to Mr. Bisignano's testimony?
The committee chairman, Mike Crapo, said that while no tax filing season is perfect, he was really happy with the performance of the IRS this year. He said that the filing season proceeded smoothly for tens of millions of Americans. Democrats on the committee, however, were pretty critical of these IRS staffing cuts, saying that they will, in the long term, really be detrimental to the IRS's ability to handle its enforcement operations, go after people who are not paying their fair share, and assist in taxpayers who are trying to pay what they owe to the agency. And we heard this prominently from the ranking member, Ron Wyden. He really was concerned that the IRS is going to see worse service to customers as a result of these layoffs that we saw last year.
Well, to that point, did Mr. Besignano offer any insight as what the rest of 2026 might bring for the IRS?
Yeah, so there's going to be a focus for sure on further improvements to its online capabilities. He pointed to the fact that IRS.gov saw a 60% increase in traffic volume this filing season. As a result of some added capabilities to the website, they have seen a year-over-year decrease in phone calls, and that he says that the call wait time for taxpayers who do get through to an IRS employee, that's down to the single digits, around 9 minutes overall.
That's Federal News Network's Jory Heckman. Jory, thanks for this update.
Thanks, Terry.
You can find his story at federalnewsnetwork.com.